Hi there, it's Mary here with a new random facts. Now this is the first in a series of 3 random facts about Playboy and Hugh Hefner. I ended up dividing it into 3 sections because I found so much information. I've been a fan of the magazine for a while. I actually used to subscribe and read it, but then the content started to not appeal to me as much, so I did let my subscription lapse. Every once in a while I'll still buy an issue, but yeah. So I figure, put it out there. Yes, I actually like the company and the brand. Some of the information may not be child safe. I'm pretty sure it's all mostly, but I figure parents should know ahead of time. Watch the video if you have kids that watch this with you, without your kids there. If you feel like they're okay watching it, great. This is actually one of my shirts that's Playboy branded. Yes, I actually have several Playboy branded pieces of merchandise, between jewelry, t-shirts, decor. Like I said, I actually like the company, and a lot of people don't understand how someone who seems feminist could also like the company, but it's also empowering to have sexual freedom. I think it's also, people judge it because it was a man who gave the sexual freedom, not a woman. In some ways, it's a lot like having the slut walks that they host today. Women should be able to feel comfortable wearing whatever they want and not feel threatened just because somebody apparently can't control themselves. They need to learn how to better control themselves and have respect instead. And from what I can find, Playboy kind of helped empower people to feel that way and have some sexual freedoms where in the past they might not have. And it's not just for women that receive the sexual freedom. The magazine's not just for men. They actually have women who subscribe too. So, let's get started with my first segment of Playboy and Hugh Hefner facts, which is going to deal primarily with Hugh Hefner, the man himself, the creator of Playboy. Hugh Marston Hefner, that was his full name, was born April 19th, 1926 and died on September 27th of 2017. He was an advocate for sexual liberation and freedom of expression. Hefner was a political activist and philanthropist in several other causes and public issues. So not just for mostly public speaking, right to free speech and sexual freedom, but he also helped with a lot of others. Some I'm for and some I'm not as much for, but hey, still. So Hefner was born during the Prohibition era, and the mansion was actually, the Playboy Mansion West was built during the Prohibition era. I don't have that in my notes, I just thought it was an interesting thing to share. And he was born in Chicago, Illinois, as I said, on April 9th of 1926. His parents were Grace Caroline, born Swanson, and she lived from 1895 to 1897. Good long life there too. And she worked as a teacher, and his father, Glenn Lucius Hefner, was born in 1896 and died in 1976, was an accountant. Both parents were from Nebraska and met while playing basketball. They were on the individual men's and female teams. Their second son was Keith, who lived from 1929 to 2016. Through his father's line, Hefner stated that he was a direct descendant of Plymouth Governor William Bedford. He described his family as conservative, Midwestern, and Methodist. After attending Sayre Elementary School and Steinmetz College Prep, Hefner then served from 1944 to 1946 as a U.S. Army writer for a military newspaper. Hefner graduated from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign with a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and a double minor in Creative Writing and Art. He earned his degree in 2.5 years in 1949. After he took a semester of graduate courses in sociology at Northwestern University, but dropped out soon after. According to his biography, that's also when he started to read Ayn Rand. In case you didn't know and were interested, he also had a keen interest in her writings and admired her work. Hefner's favorite hangout when he was a college student was Bunny's Tavern. It was a bar and restaurant and a place where waitresses dressed up as bunnies. Sound familiar? Later he also picked the animal because bunnies have a lot of sex, and in the early days of Playboy, Hefner started Playboy clubs where the waitresses dressed up as bunnies to serve the customers in homage to Bunny's Tavern. There's actually a long list of women who were bunnies at one point and went on to do other things in entertainment. Debbie Harry is one of the big ones. We all know about Gloria Steinem working as a bunny for a while. There's actually a whole book called Bunny Tales all about it. Hefner made cartoons while serving in the Army during World War II. As an infantry clerk, he made cartoons for military publications. His colleague and future Popeye cartoonist Hy Eisman wasn't a fan of his drawings and suggested he look for other jobs after the war. But Hef always liked doing the cartoons and whatnot. Hugh Hefner waited to have sex, this is going to shock some people, until after he was married. After he and his first wife, Mildred Williams, revealed that she had cheated on him before their wedding while he served in the Army. And Hef stated, "That was the most devastating moment in my life." And he was 22 when he got married. So Hugh Hefner, this man that we consider a Lothario, a king of sex, waited until he was 22 years old and married. Very conservative if you think about it. Obviously, from what we know or have heard, unless you were actually there, you don't know for a fact, he definitely made up for lost time from the sounds of it, but he did wait until a more conservative structure of beliefs deemed that it was appropriate. So Hugh and Mildred, aka Millie Hefner, which, as I said, was his first wife, they got married in 1949 after the two met at Northwestern University and had a relationship for years before getting married. In 1959, just a decade later, they filed for divorce. That was the first of his divorces. He actually only had 2 total. Before wedding, I actually already stated that about the affair. Sorry for having multiple cards of the same thing. And then in 2006, apparently regarding the cheating situation, Millie had cheated on him and it being devastating. In a 2006 True Hollywood Story profile of Hefner, he revealed that Millie allowed him to have sex with other women out of guilt for her own infidelity and in hope that it would preserve their marriage. So apparently she allowed it to be an open marriage. All I know about people who have open marriages and polygamy, all I need to know is it's not for me. My thought is, if everybody in the situation is okay with it and everybody's out in the open and honest about it, live and let live. So Hefner made himself as a bon vivant and a man about town. A lifestyle promoted in his magazine and 2 TV shows he hosted, Playboy's Penthouse, which aired from 1959 to 1960, and Playboy After Dark, which aired 1969 through 1970. Apparently, a young lady had chosen not to go with him to a hayride when he had asked her on this date, and that's when he came up with Hef and started to really style his lifestyle a little bit back in high school. But he definitely wanted to live the image of the magazine, which also helped promote the magazine and the company and the whole franchise. Before founding Playboy, Hef worked different jobs, of course, and they were in the publishing industry, including some stabs at cartooning and as a copywriter for Esquire, which most of us know about the whole thing where Esquire wouldn't give him the raise, and that's why he went off to start Playboy. But one of the positions he held was as the circulation director of a Chicago-based children's magazine. That one was definitely new to me, and I actually already knew quite a bit already about Hugh Hefner. Like I said, I've read biographies and everything, and So before even researching this. So that was a surprise to me when that he had worked at a children's magazine. In 1953, he took, sorry about the, so in 1953, he took out a mortgage generating a bank loan of $600 and raised $8,000 from 45 investors, including $1,000 from his mother, to launch Playboy, which was initially going to be called Stag Party. The first issue was published December of 1953 and sold over 50,000 copies. They did later reissue it, so they do have a more recent printing. You need to make sure if you have the 1953 December Playboy, you're going to need to go and do research to make sure it's the legitimate first issue, because like I said, they reissued it in the 2000s. Which was really cool to see, because I know I've seen the reissued one, and it's neat to see it, but at the same time, for collectors, it might put a little bit of concern out there. So, I get to deal with that stuff on a daily basis. This is the fun stuff. So, starting from his kitchen table, 64 years ago, Mr. Hefner's uncompromising vision drove the creation of not just the iconic and groundbreaking magazine, but what has become one of the world's most enduring and recognizable brands. It's all over the world now. The first issue in December 1953 was undated, as Hefner was unsure there would be a second issue. So that's one of the points to look for. I don't recall if that was on the reissue or not, but it is something to look for. Trust me, there's a lot of research to do to make sure you got a first issue of something. A year before his court battle with the Postal Service, the first edition featuring nude pictures of Marilyn Monroe, originally taken for a calendar, not Playboy. He actually bought the rights to the whole calendar, and there were some people who ended up being playmates without knowing it for years until later when they came across the issue that they were in, because they had also posed for the same calendar. And it caused a sensation in the sexually repressed post-war 1950s. Quote, "It gave sex a good name and incorporated it as a natural part of a men's entertainment magazine." In 1954, Hefner won a legal battle against the U.S. Postal Service when Postmaster Geneva Arthur Summerfield refused to deliver copies of Playboy on the grounds it was obscene. Hef told the court, "We don't think Postmaster Summerfield has any business editing magazines. We think he should stick to delivering the mail." He actually won that. If you didn't know, obviously he won that case because Playboy is still delivered through the mail. On June 4th, 1963, Hefner was arrested for promoting obscene literature after he published an issue of Playboy that featured nude shots of Jane Mansfield. The case went to trial and resulted in a hung jury. So no decision was made on that one. But in the late 1960s, Playboy was a roaring success, and Hefner moved his office into his bedroom to make things easier. This is the time when his iconic smoking jacket look started. Quote, "I started wearing them all the time because I was working at night, and then I started wearing them when I entertained. I realized I could get away with it. Then, of course, people were disappointed if they didn't find me in pajamas." End of quote. So it kind of makes sense. He was working around the clock from the sounds of it those times, sometimes with a little extra chemical help. Very common in that era. Obviously, he did end that at one point. In 1970, the chemical part. In 1970, Hugh Hefner stated that militant feminists are unalterably opposed to the romantic boy-girl society that Playboy promotes, and ordered a hit piece in his magazine against them. Like I said at the beginning, some feminists are anti-Playboy, some feminists are fine with Playboy. As with most things, it's just a taste thing. Some people look at it as degrading. I look at it as every model in that magazine, other than the calendar girls, which they even chose to be in that calendar. Nobody coerced them. They chose that. And they've used it as a stepping point for other things, a lot of them much greater things. Some of them just thought it would be a fun thing to do and found it empowering in other ways. So nobody was forced to show their bodies off. They chose to. And yeah. So back to more Hef. The Louisiana pastor and author L.L. Clover wrote in his 1974 treatise, Evil Spirits, Intellectualism, and Logic, that Playboy encouraged young men to view themselves as pleasure-seeking individuals for whom sex is fun and women are playthings. It's interesting that he thinks that way, that he thought that way. I look at it as, like I said, I disagree with a lot of the critics out there. I look at it as partners, not playthings. They're play partners. But apparently he looked at it as a different way. But he also probably looked at sexuality and relationships in a different way than some do. In The Guardian, journalist Suzanne Moore wrote that Hugh Hefner threatened to file a lawsuit against her for calling him a, quote, pimp. Defending her position, Moore argues that he, quote, he was a man who bought and sold women to other men, unquote. She further stated that, quote, part of Hefner's business acumen was to make the selling of female flesh respectable and hip, to make soft porn acceptable, end of quote. We'll just leave that one there. Writing for The Independent, English writer Julie Bindel stated that Hugh Hefner, quote, caused immeasurable damage by turning porn and therefore the buying and selling of women's bodies into legitimate business, end of quote. Also, writing for Christianity Today, missiologist Ed Stetzer described that during his lifetime, when Christy Hefner visited the Playboy Mansion, he would have the residence systematically cleaned in order to, quote, keep the realities from his own daughter. Stetzer further lamented the consequences of Hefner's role as a general of the sexual revolution. And here is a quote from him. Quote, it's hard to fathom that anyone would have known what this would have turned into. Parents growing up today are fighting to keep their children pure. Spouses are fighting to keep their marriages intact. And many enslaved and trapped in the adult entertainment industry have been figuratively and literally stripped, not only of their clothes, but their very value as people made in the image of God. If this does not concern us, what will? End of quote, like I said, by Ed Stetzer. Which, at some point we will get about some of the things that Hef did to help people who are stuck in the adult industry rather than choosing the adult industry. So, this is definitely something more for not necessarily the heterosexuals, but more likely the homosexuals at the time that he was fighting this. But some heterosexuals enjoy this too. Hugh Hefner actually fought the country's archaic sodomy laws, firmly believing that the government had no place in American bedrooms. His work in this area has been recognized as influential by historians of the gay rights movement, which most sodomy laws, that's what they were really going after, were the homosexuals, not, they were going after gay men, not other sexual outlets. But there are people who do choose to go that way, and there are some who don't believe it's okay. My thought is, again, choose what's right for you. That's what you need to do. You need to know what's right for you, and as long as somebody's not hurting someone else, let them live their life. I mean, there are certain things where, yes, you can judge a little. You can say, yeah, probably shouldn't do that. Going after a person who is underage, especially in today's society. Yeah. But how you choose to express yourself sexually with two consenting people of adult age that can make those choices, except consenting. Consent is sexy. So in 1971, he acknowledged that he had experimented in bisexuality. Also in 1971, Hefner established a second residence in Los Angeles with the acquisition of Playboy Mansion West, which is the one that we most often think of when we hear Playboy Mansion, not the one in Chicago. And in 1975, he moved there permanently from Chicago. So, yes, he experimented with homosexual sex. Apparently he had received a blowjob from another man, or oral sex from another man, and he decided it wasn't for him. But he tried it. So, now to get on to some more fun, less sexual parts, I think. In 1978, Hefner helped organize fundraising efforts that led to the restoration of the Hollywood sign. He hosted a gala fundraiser at the Playboy Mansion and personally contributed $27,000, or 1/9 of the total restoration costs, by purchasing the letter Y in a ceremonial auction. So the Y in the Hollywood sign is actually dedicated to Hugh Hefner, who helped to save the sign in many ways. So every time you see that sign in Hollywood, remember, Hugh Hefner and Playboy are a big part of why you get to still see the Hollywood sign as it is today. Now let's talk about his daughter, his first child, Christy. She created the Hugh M. Hefner First Amendment Award to honor her father, and it's helped to raise over $30 million to build the CORE, C-O-R-E, Center in Chicago, which was the first outpatient facility in the Midwest for those who suffer from AIDS. So we're starting to get some more of the positive things here. In 1980, Mr. Hefner championed the reconstruction of the Hollywood sign and was honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for his efforts. So he also received his Hollywood Walk of Fame because of helping the restoration, which we already mentioned. Hef has been honored by Penn USA, a literary organization with 2 awards that recognizes 50 years of support for unchampioned writers and fighting censorship. Again, he was really big on the First Amendment, as was his daughter, obviously. So that's something that he seemed to have instilled on her as well. This is, I think, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service named a type of rabbit the Silvilgus palustris hefneri to honor him, and that was around 1984. So there's actually a marsh hare out there named after Hugh Hefner. In 1985, he had a minor stroke at the age of 59. After reevaluating his lifestyle, he made several changes. The wild all-night parties were toned down significantly in 1988, and daughter Christy took over the operation of the Playboy empire. Hugh Hefner would still serve as editor-in-chief, it's just his daughter took over more of the everyday corporation stuff. I remember seeing an interview with her saying that after his stroke, she remembered seeing him holding a magazine upside down, pretending that he was reading it, to pretend he was better than he was feeling. I believe that's also when he gave up smoking the pipes, but I need to double check that part. Hef received the 1996 International Publishing Award from the International Press Directory in London and was inducted into the Hall of Fame of the American Society of Magazine Editors at its 1998 ceremonies in New York. In 1999, Hefner financed the Clara Bow documentary Discovering the It Girl. Quote, "Nobody has what Clara had. She defined an era and made her mark on the nation." End of quote. That is what he stated about Clara Bow. For those of you who don't know, she was a very prominent actress. Look into her stuff. I'm all about the classic cinema. That's the thing I coveted most about Hugh Hefner, is he had this amazing collection of films. I wish I could have had access to that. In September 2001, kind of an interesting time for those of us who know our American history and were alive then. But in September 2001, he was inducted into the New York Friars Club as an honorary friar. His gala roast in New York City, which was an evening of uninhibited comedy, and aired nationwide on the Comedy Central network. So he is an unofficial friar. There is actually a roast of Hugh Hefner out there. Fun stuff. I think the roasts are kind of fun. In January of 2002, he received the Henry Johnson Fisher Award, which is the highest honor of the Magazine Publishers of America. He was inducted as an honorary member of the Harvard Lampoon in March 2002, which named him Harvard Lampoon's best life form in the history of the universe. For those of you who don't know, there used to be a Lampoon magazine that was national, not just for the college, but there are some good movies. These are the same Lampoons who make the National Lampoon's European Vacation and a lot of that stuff. I think their movies have gotten a little downhill from where I liked them before, but their 80s were primo for me. On January 14th of 2004, the Ninth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals ruled Playboy Enterprises Inc.'s trademark terms Playboy and Playmate should be protected in the situation where a user typing Playboy or Playmate in a browser search was instead shown advertisements of companies that competed with PEI, Playboy Enterprises Incorporated, and the decision was reversing an earlier district ruling. The suit started on April 15th, 1999, when Playboy sued Excite Inc. and Netscape for trademark infringement. And those bunny outfits are also trademarked, if you didn't know. Which is why you can't find an exact replica. You can find kind of copies, but unless you know somebody who was a bunny and is willing to sell their uniform that they weren't supposed to take, you're not going to find the actual Playboy outfit. This is another one that was new to me to learn. When Hunter S. Thompson committed suicide, his will designated a trustee to look over his joint bank account with his wife. Anita Thompson, his widow, was stuck, left frozen out and cashless. Hugh Hefner sent a gift of $25,000 to help her get through the chaos. And she posted this on Facebook. She posted on Facebook the following, quote, "At the time, it felt like $1 million, and I will always be grateful for that random act of kindness. Rest in peace, Hugh. Thank you again for your generosity and kindness." End of quote. So, not as selfish as some people will make him sound. Obviously, we all have our selfish moments, but in 2008, Spike TV honored him with their Guy's Choice Alpha Male Lifetime Achievement Award. And August 11th of 2009, it was reported that Hugh Hefner sold his English manor house next door to the Playboy Mansion for $18 million, $10 million less than the reported asking price, to Darren Metropolis, the president and co-owner of Pabst Blue Ribbon, and then the Playboy Mansion was later purchased by him from the company for $100 million in 2016. Hugh Hefner never owned the mansion, but he did own that English Tudor next door. That was actually the house he had for his second wife, Kimberly Conrad Hefner, when they were estranged and their boys were growing up. And they basically had it so the boys could go between the two households without any issue. That way they could be close to both parents, but the parents didn't have to cohabitate. Hefner has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for television and made several movie appearances as himself on the small screen. In 2009, he received a Worst Supporting Actor nomination for a Razzie Award for his performance as himself in Miss March. On his official Twitter account, he joked about this nomination. Quote, "Maybe I didn't understand the character." End of quote. So, I don't know if any of you have seen Miss March. It's definitely... it's a little raunchy. It's definitely a weird comedy. It's not very good, in my opinion. It was okay for silliness, but most of it was just dumb, in my opinion. Maybe you like it, I don't know, but for me it was lacking. I was expecting a much better film. A documentary by Brigitte Berman, Hugh Hefner, Playboy, activist, and rebel, was released on July 30th of 2010. He had previously granted full access to documentary filmmaker and television producer Kevin Burns for the Annie biography special, Hugh Hefner, American Playboy, in 1996. Hefner and Burns later collaborated on numerous other projects, most notably The Girls Next Door, which was a reality series that ran for 6 seasons, 2005 through 2009, and 90 episodes. I still watch repeats of the show. It's not the most intellectual show, I'm not gonna lie, but sometimes it's just good silliness. I love watching it with commentary. I will admit, the first 5 seasons, yay. Last season, but that could just be me. I liked the first 3 girls that were in the show much better. Their personalities seemed to shine better. And the interviews were less, the commentary is a little less catty in the first 5 years. But it's kind of fun watching the 4th and 5th seasons with commentary, because they start to, that commentary is done after the breakup, so it's kind of fun. Like I said, I still watch it. Not all the time, but as much as I used to, but. Back to some of his accolades. So on November 18th of 2010, Children of the Night founder and president Dr. Lois Lee presented Hefner with the organization's first ever Founders Hero of the Heart Award, an appreciation for his unwavering dedication, commitment, and generosity. On April 26th, 2010, Hefner donated the last $900,000 sought by a conservation group for a land purchase needed to stop the development of the famed vista of the Hollywood sign. Silvelagus palustris hefneri, an endangered subspecies of marsh rabbit, is named after him in honor of financial support that he provided. So back to that. Now, Children of the Night is a very important organization for those of you who don't know about it. Tracy Lord, I believe, has done a lot of work with them as well. If you don't know her history, it's pretty interesting. She definitely was one of the people that should have had a little more help, and that's part of the reason why they have this now. So Children of the Night rescues children from child prostitution. That's their primary thing that they do. So they're trying to take the people who are forced into this world and life out of it, instead of those who choose. Not saying that somebody who's a teenager might not choose it for at least some point, but they're probably not ready to make that choice. And a lot of times they do one out after. But regardless, this group helps, and they thanked Hefner by giving him an award for his efforts in the same manner. In fact, there's a story where somebody had sent a letter about wanting to become a playmate. It was before they were 18. They didn't even open the letter, apparently. Just got sent back to them. In 2011, honored with the Thalians Mr. Wonderful Award for a lifetime of philanthropy, and that same year he received the Lifetime Achievement Award by the Los Angeles Press Club. So both through his charitable foundation and individually, Hefner also contributed to charities outside the sphere of politics and publishing, throwing fundraiser events for Much Love Animal Rescue as well as Generation Rescue, which is a controversial anti-vaccinationist campaign organization supported by Jenny McCarthy, who was Playmate of the Year in 1994 and was Miss October of 1993. I'm very pro getting your vaccines. herd immunity is important for many reasons. There are some who can't get the vaccines for many reasons, and I don't mean like mom and dad chose not to get them the vaccines because they're worried about some fake scientist. This doctor still makes me angry. He falsified reports about vaccinations causing autism. So there are a lot of people who believe that you shouldn't get vaccines based on fake science. And it really angers me that is part of the problem. But I know of a woman whose first child was allergic to the vaccinations, so she couldn't get the rest of them. And out of fear, because the first child almost died from these allergies, her siblings also didn't get the vaccinations. These are legitimate excuses. Immunocompromised people can't get the vaccinations. So if the child has cancer. Now, by having people who are healthy enough and not allergic to these vaccinations getting the vaccinations, that keeps those at risk healthy. That's what herd immunity is. We have almost killed off so many diseases that are now making a comeback because people aren't vaccinating. So I don't like that he supported it, but I understand why. He was friends with the person who was doing it, and she really, truly believed, and maybe still believes, that was responsible for her son's autistic behavior. But she also believes that she cured his autism. I don't even know if that's possible. Helping somebody learn the best way to deal with it, yes, that I get. But claiming to have cured it, So, but it is another charitable contribution he made. I don't approve of that group, obviously. So back to the good. Hefner donated $100,000 to the University of Southern California's School of Cinematic Arts to create a course called Censorship in Cinema, and $2 million to endow a chair for the study of American film. As a person who has a degree in cinema studies, again, so grateful for this. He was a big proponent for film preservation and study, and he actually put together notes every time he would show an old movie at his house, which was very frequent, believe it or not. So I definitely love that he was into film preservation and that he was anti-censorship and learning about the censorship, because it's really interesting how that worked with films, with even implied sex with censorship in films. A whole nother story, I know, but maybe I'll do a video some other day on that. So, back to Hef. Hugh Hefner donated and raised money for the Democratic Party in 2011. He referred to himself as an independent due to disillusionment with both the Democratic and Republican parties. However, in 2012, he supported Barack Obama's re-election campaign. In 2011, Hefner was inscribed in the Guinness Book of World Records as having the largest personal scrapbooking collection in the world. This collection consists of more than 2,900 volumes. I can't imagine. I don't even get into scrapbooking at all, so I can't imagine having 2,900. Quote, "It was probably just a way of creating a world of my own to share with my friends, and in retrospect, in thinking about it, it's not a whole lot different than creating the magazine." End of quote, Hugh Hefner. So in a way, I think the magazine itself is also scrapbooks at times for him, but being that he's such an iconic figure in the world and has had a historical impact on society, whether you realize it or not, it's kind of nice to have those there for historians to maybe look at, or people who want to pay homage. And there's talks about possibly making the mansion a historical site and all this stuff. The Guinness Book of World Records also had entered him for being the longest running editor of a magazine. Like I said, he was editor-in-chief until the very end. I forget exactly when he gave up editor-in-chief, but for almost the entire run of the magazine of his lifetime, he was the editor-in-chief. He received the Treasures of Los Angeles Award in 2012 from Central City Association of Los Angeles, and was also honored with the Distinguished Service Award by the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. In 2012, Hefner announced his youngest son, Cooper, would likely succeed him as the public face of Playboy, which so far I think he's doing some good stuff. He does a lot more Twitter than Hugh Hefner did, but I got some good quotes off of there because of him, of things that I just agree politically with. I'm a very human rights person. In 2013, Playboy was cleared by the Pentagon of violating its rule against selling sexually explicit material on military property. But the base exchanges stopped selling it anyway. Sorry to our military troops. Hopefully you can still get access to it somehow. Hefner's brother Keith died at the age of 87 on April 8th, 2016, one day before Hefner's 90th birthday. And I think Keith was truly his closest, bestest friend. They seemed to really care about each other and were very close. Keith actually had been fighting cancer before his demise. Hef reportedly owned more than 200 custom-made smoking jackets and pajamas. Hugh Hefner's contribution in the fight for civil rights, including LGBT rights, should be known. Quote by Hugh Hefner, "I have chosen every aspect of human sexuality and the discrimination that goes along with some of those aspects as my major concern. Homosexuality and later the homophobia that surrounded the AIDS crisis are part of a much bigger picture for me." End of quote. So he definitely was pro-gay rights. I know there are people who may not realize that, but he was. In fact, Hefner supported legalizing same-sex marriage, and he stated that a fight for gay marriage was a fight for all our rights. Without it, we will turn back the sexual revolution and return to an earlier puritanical time. Yes, that was another quote of Hugh Hefner. Yet another quote. The fight for gay marriage is in reality a fight for all of our rights, he said. I just said that quote. I am sorry for starting it again. So, to quote, "Today, in every instance of sexual rights falling under attack, you'll find legislation forced into place by people who practice discrimination, disguised as religious freedom." Next quote, "Their goal is to dehumanize everyone's sexuality and reduce us to using sex for the sole purpose of perpetuating our species. To that end, they will criminalize your entire sex life." Now, with those, when it comes to gay marriage, so sorry. Hopefully I'll edit that out. So when it comes to gay marriage and the argument of marriage is supposed to be only for perpetuating the species, if you're going to play that card, my honest opinion is then no one who is incapable of having children or unwilling to have children can get married then. If it's only so you can have, if marriage is only for making and having children, that would be the complete logic of that statement. Since it's not upheld, then that means they should have the right to get married. Why shouldn't they have the same right to have a legal connection and make that commitment if they so choose? Now this one is a quote from Cooper Hefner. Quote, "My father lived an exceptional and impactful life as a media and cultural pioneer, and as a leading voice behind some of the most significant social and cultural movements of our time in advocating free speech, civil rights, and sexual freedom. He defined a lifestyle and ethos that lie at the heart of the Playboy brand, one of the most recognizable and enduring in history. He will be greatly missed by many, including his wife Crystal, my sister Christy, and my brothers David and Marston, and all of us at Playboy Enterprises." Like I said, this was said by Cooper Hefner, who is currently the Chief Creative Officer of Playboy Enterprises, and as I mentioned before, kind of the public face of Playboy. Another Cooper Hefner quote that I got from Twitter after Hugh Hefner's death: "My dad spent much of his life fighting for his and others' right to choose the life they want to live." And when asked what Hefner thought he had done for women, he replied, quote, "I helped emancipate them," end of quote. So that was just kind of some trivia on Hugh Hefner himself. I agree with, he did help to emancipate women and free us up. I feel like from when he first put out the magazine, women were much more defined as being housewives a lot of times. We weren't allowed to be as sexual and open. I feel like we're now allowed to be more outspoken, which maybe that's not just the magazine, maybe that's other stuff as well. Obviously there was the women's right movement, which huge for being able to be as outspoken as we are. But I feel like Hef did still contribute to that. So I have 2 more episodes of random facts about Playboy and Hugh Hefner, its founder. The rest of them are more on the company and the magazine. I hope you have a great day and enjoy. Like I said, I know some of it wasn't family friendly, but have a great day, and please be kind to each other.
I feel like Christopher Columbus when I'm near enough to contemplate the sweet geography descending from your eyebrow to your toe. The possibilities are more than I can possibly enumerate. That's why you fascinate me so sermonize and preach to me. Come on and make your sanctimonious little speech to me. But underneath it all, I